Is that your favorite sword?
Yeah.
That one?
The one that I compete with.
Nice.
It's got a wicked bend in it, so I'm like, I don't train with it because I don't think I can stab so many more people with it before it snaps. We got another one coming, but they all come from like the Ukraine.
Why is it Ukraine? Do you know?
Ukraine and Poland historically were a lot of the like familial people who used to make this shit like in the 1400s and whatnot. Like, so they have the best living tradition for doing it. And then that's also where I think the bigger like scenes are in general. Like, people do shit like this for like at a relatively popular level. So it's just more of a business. Steel's cheaper.
That's cool. Is it pretty expensive, like each sword? Does it have a range?
This was like 600 something after shipping. So
after shipping,
for something that's like got a lifespan,
it's like a pretty good one too.
Yeah, it's a high end one.
Yeah,
a basic tool like this is $350.
Is it all handmade?
That's a good question. Most of the steel is just like quality steel that comes in big sheets, and they have basically giant either presses or lasers that kind of cut it to size, but then hand assembled.
Have you thought about making your own sword?
It is a hobby that is usually pretty associated with like what we do. Like a lot of people get into amateur blacksmithing. It would be fun to fuck around and make like a knife or something.
Do you know people that do it?
There's in Portland. Not surprisingly, there's a fair amount of basically like what's the right term? It's like you can go in. It's almost like a library, like a tool library. But there are ones where people will let you into like it's like a tool forge, so you can kind of come in and.
That's so cool.
Who's getting what color?
Joe gets red. I get blue.
There you go.
You get green. And Taylor?
I've never been on a podcast before. This is the first.
How are you feeling?
I'm a little nervous.
Well, we literally just talk about nothing. Nothing in particular.
Less nervous now.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes we just have like moments of silence.
It's a good place for it.
It's been a long ride, but now I wanna.
It's been a long ass time, so let's hang out and go to a fucking bar.
So, I didn't actually hear about this sword. What is it? Where is it from?
Oh, this is I don't know. I'll start big and go small. This is what we use in the HEMA, Historical European Martial Arts Community. It's called a fetter, which I believe is High German for feather. I'm not really sure. Don't quote me on that. It's basically a longsword simulator. Like it's a two-handed big longsword made safer so that we can kind of more safely hit people with 3.5 pounds of steel.
So it's just like made to be more dull?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like the edges are dulled and usually either rounded or hexagonal. So you the force dispersion, like the pounds per square inch when you get hit. Like if you got hit with a sharp sword, it's not the cut so much as the fact that it's like a razor's edge of mass that's hitting you with all the force. So you break rather than get like sliced.
What's like the worst injury you've had from sword fighting?
I tore my ACL.
What's that?
It's the anterior cruciate ligament in your leg. So it's in my left leg. It's basically the ligament that controls torque and torsion in your knee.
Oh.
So I tore that. But the worst one was actually, I took a shot to the throat at an event a little bit ago.
Ooh.
That it sort of bypassed my safety gear and
Oh no.
yeah, I'll show you a picture or the video, but like these things bend when you apply pressure, right? And so if you look at this video, the dude's sword bent fully 90 degrees, stuck on my throat, and I heard this pop, and like sort of blacked out for a second, and kind of woke up as I was falling to the ground.
Whoa.
That sucked.
Yeah.
It actually sucked
Whoa.
worse for him though, because I got back up, waited for a few minutes, and then we continued because the medic was like, "Yeah, I think he's fine." And
Were you fine?
No, I mean I ended up going to the ER the next day. But the poor dude who did it, like he felt so guilty, and he shouldn't. Like he was just he was in the right place. It was a good. It was like he was in control. It was just a shitty situation, but he was so shook that I just like rocked him and ended up winning the whole event. And then
Wow.
choking on my dinner and breakfast, and then going to the hospital the next morning.
Whoa. Choking on your dinner?
Because
at
my
breakfast?
throat was swelling. It was swelling
Okay.
up from the trauma.
Ouch.
When you said rocked, I thought you meant you rocked him like a baby. Like, it's okay.
I have had to do that. I've seen the guy at a bunch of events around the country since, and every time I walk up, and I'm like, "It's okay. You didn't
nice.
like I'm alive. You didn't kill me."
Yeah. Oh yeah, good idea. So are there do you have a lot of friends in the community?
I mean, within the community, yeah, but like I don't have a lot of friends
That you're hanging out outside of events with?
I think in a hobby like this, you end up like the friends you make quickly. You end up hanging out with them a lot more.
Oh right.
But like I don't have friends that I brought into it, if that makes sense. Like friends that I had from elsewhere.
Us.
Yeah.
Well, we're the next one.
Yes, you two would be basically the first.
I would love to go to one of these
Yeah.
events.
Yeah, we should. If you're in town, I'm hosting a big tournament in June. I
Whoa.
can't imagine you will be, but
That sounds so cool. You're hosting it?
my club, but yeah, I'll be the
That's so
the
cool.
host and the
How
MC.
many people are coming?
MC.
I'm hoping we get about 100 fighters across a couple of different types of tournaments.
Wow.
Wow.
Have you
That's
emceed an event before?
Small ones.
Okay. How do you feel about it? Like, are you nervous about it? Or are you
Not
excited?
really excited. I'm more nervous about not getting enough people either to
Okay,
come
right.
or people not feeling it gets a value if they travel. But I think
Is there like a prize for winning
yeah,
usually?
we'll do prizes.
What is it?
It really depends on the event and who we can get to supply stuff. So like in the past, there's a dude up in Seattle who makes like actual sharp, like amazing sword, like $1,500, $2,000 swords. And every so often we can get him to donate something.
Oh.
We'll see. There are a lot of Renaissance people around.
Right.
So
Oh, gotcha.
we've got to hook up with like, you can get a custom doublet made for the next Renaissance fair you're going to go to or something like that.
That's cool.
Wow. So there's like a whole history element in the event. Are you gonna be as MC? Are you gonna be
Are you going to be telling us
giving
historical
historical lectures and stuff?
That's actually not an
Cool.
unreasonable question. Like any of these events are all kind of on a spectrum of like how sporty modern athletic do you want to get versus how sort of like historical anthropological do you want to get. I think for this, it's mainly just for now competition to get people in. But I've definitely been to. So the one I was just telling you about where I got hurt, the after party was at this. It's a forge where they make shit like this. But it's also home to like a collection of ancient weapons that was willed to these guys. And the party was 3 people giving like these theses that they had prepared for their medieval studies doctorates. So we just sort of sat there and like listened to history nerds talk.
Okay.
That's
Were you into it or no?
awesome.
I was actually I was. One of them was on like how social media affects swordplay in a modern way, which is kind of a really weird thing
Yeah.
to say out loud.
Yeah. Wow.
And then, so it was the guy. He had some takes I didn't agree with, but like his whole premise about like how social media allows for like these immediate zeitgeists to take place within a small community can really just like in a flash kind of overwhelm the community's preferences or like perspectives. Like he picked up this sword and he was like, all right, who knows what this is? And everyone like groaned. And he was like, all of you fuckers groaned because you know that this is a sprintroon and you all think this is a stupid sword. And people were like, yeah. And he's like, and you think that because you watched this one YouTube video uploaded by this guy. Raise your hand if you watched that video. And everyone was like, yeah, put up. And he was like, let's just like, look, dude, I know why all of you think this. And come play with this afterwards. You will see that you're wrong.
Whoa.
And
Did
it
you
was-
play with it?
I did. He was right. He was like it's nimble, it's sharp, it's got
This is
heft. it's-
amazing. You're like
He's-
answering questions that we had without even asking.
He was like, wow, he was like rebuking the brethren. Like,
Wow.
that's cool.
Yeah, well, and his thing is, it's like we don't realize how much clout we all have in a small community, like a super niche hobby.
Right.
It's like people need to watch what they say because like a whole section of study might get cut off, right? Like people only
True.
study weapons or periods or locations because there's interest.
Mm,
And
right.
when Mr. X says he thinks this sword is dumb, and then no one studies it, like,
Right.
are we just totally closing ourselves off from like what could be the next really big, boon to the hobby?
You could
Wow.
apply that to so many things.
Yeah, niche hobbies in general, right? Like,
Totally. Yeah, there's so much to explore. Right now I'm exploring a niche. It's called katsuben. Have you heard of it?
I'm familiar with katsubento and katsuben.
I didn't even know. Most Japanese people don't even know about
this.
this.
Is ringing
just so
a
you
bell
know.
on top of the fact that I know what those words mean. But go for it. I don't waste
It's
time
like-
with me guessing.
Yeah, it's silent film narration. So there's
Son of a bitch.
yeah.
Okay.
So there's Benshi, who
It's short for Katsudo Benshi or something. Right?
yeah, I
That
think
makes-
so.
yeah.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, but they
Thinking
just
about lunch.
they narrate silent films, and I went to a performance in Japan in December, and I like fell in love with it, and now I'm trying to learn as much as I can about it.
So, this is Japan, so it's probably not satirical. This is not like they're riffing. It's not like a "What's Up, Tiger Lily" sort of thing, right? They're like actually artfully
Yes.
narrating
Yes,
this.
but when this guy does it, it is
It
kind of
is more
like,
satirical.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I did it
The
for
one that you did.
yeah, I did it for a trip to the moon.
Okay.
Which I found out is like a satirical piece already. It's so I did it satirically.
Okay.
But I want to be more serious about it, and
You just want to do all sorts of things.
yeah, I want to do all kinds of things. But I love silent movies, so that's why I've gotten into it so much. But I befriended someone who does it. Her name's Sawato Midori. And she's been doing it for 50 years. I went to her 50th year anniversary.
Wow.
So niche.
I was gonna say, talk about a niche.
But yeah, but I've been learning a lot of things, and there's been like a lot of like issues that I've come across because so many silent movies like is made in a different time. Like there's just some things.
So racist.
It was very
Oh, God.
racist.
Yeah.
Like I'll be
Super racist.
my sensei. She asked me. Well, she told me that I should do a Western because I'm from Phoenix.
That seems reasonable.
Yeah, and I was like, okay. So I found a Western by Fatty Arbuckle, he's like the predecessor to Charlie Chaplin.
Okay.
He's like, one of those early silent comedians. And he did a Western, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. This is going to be great. But then there's just so much racism that just happens like right in the middle of it. And I'm like, what do I do?
Yeah, and that is tough. Right? Like,
Yeah. And there's no like correct answer to that, I feel like.
Right.
yeah.
So it's like,
Because I was like, just edit it out and just tell everyone at the start. Just be like, this is racist, and I don't really want to narrate the racist part, so I just took it out. And
Yeah.
it's like copyright's expired, so you can do anything with
Yeah.
it. So
Ah,
it's like,
word. Yeah, I mean, it's like that, or you take the comedic approach where you like
yeah, or do
black
that.
it all out for a minute, and technical difficulties, and then when it comes back.
Yeah. That's a
Ah.
good idea too. But
That's a
then
great
some
idea.
people keep it in and they're very serious about it at
Yeah.
the start. Like, there's some racist parts, but we're gonna keep it in. You could do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. Yeah, there's a lot of people have different opinions, so I've just been trying to ask people what they think. But that's a good idea.
It's a
I
really
should
good
try
idea.
There was that manga that what's it called? I don't remember what it's called, but in like the 90s, it came over to the States,
hmm
and the dude had on the back of his, he's like a Ronin, and on his back of his jacket has the correctly oriented swastika.
Oh, okay.
But for Western translations, you had to flip the manga had to be read the other direction. right? Because the books are backwards.
Yeah.
So they mirrored everything, and they had to have like these massive disclaimers that are like, look, as a result of the process of publishing this book,
Right.
this is what his thing looks like. But you know, we promise that's not what it is, and it did not last.
Are there any other like controversial hot topics in the sword fighting community?
I mean, yeah, man, we've got HEMA drama, is what we call it. There's always HEMA drama going around.
HEMA drama.
HEMA, yeah, Historical European Martial Arts. So the acronym is HEMA, which is like the catch-all for anything like this.
Right. HEMA drama.
Yeah, basically the caveat for anything being HEMA is it has to come from an extant historical source.
Okay.
It's like we have to be able to go find a Renaissance Italian manual to study.
Like the OG manual?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, translated versions, right?
Right.
But like, otherwise, we're just people grabbing swords and playing at the park, which is awesome. Like, that's super cool, and that's how a lot of people end up where they're at. That's how like lightsaber people do their thing, which is dope. Like, no shade, but there needs to be a distinction, and for us, that's kind of where it lies.
Okay.
The other thing we run into, which is I think a lot more common, is gender issues.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, is it mostly male or?
Oh yeah, I mean it's such a white male sport. It's better in the States, and our club in Portland is pretty, like, I don't want to say we're good because you're never good, right? It's always it's a process, but like we're pretty damn inclusive. But you know, when you get to the competition level, it gets dicey because people take this seriously and like they want to win. But years ago, probably about 8 years ago, there was this giant blow up in the community where a trans fencer wanted to compete in the women's tournament, you know, male to female trans fencer, and a bunch of the people that were in that tournament, well, I shouldn't say a bunch, one or two people were like, no. They go to the open one where everyone can compete. Like, this is for women only, and it's a fucking shitty situation because it's like it's such a micro niche hobby.
Right.
But people still try to apply these kind of macro concepts.
Yeah.
And like personally, I think it's got absolutely no place in there. Like, if we're gonna worry about that, we should be worrying about height and weight and age.
true.
Like, so many other factors matter more than that. But,
Totally.
but yeah, I mean, it's real. Like, we have to really work to make sure people can do it and feel comfortable.
Yeah.
What kind of work do you do to make sure?
That's actually a really good question.
Because it sounds like you put in some work.
Yeah, for sure. So like a big thing that we do is, at least in my club, we have an open code of conduct that basically says like who we are and who we aren't, and it really leads with who we aren't. And then on top of that, we have when we sort of opened back up after COVID, and we got a larger group of women coming in. We just asked like, you've been sticking around. What are we doing that makes you want to keep sticking around?
Right.
And then making sure we facilitate that.
Yeah. Totally.
What prompted them to join? Do you know?
So what was interesting was it was like, let's say, so if a class is like 35 people, there was a period where we're getting to about 9 or 10 women in class, including 2 trans folk who identify as women. And that was like it's a huge spike, especially in this like super white male cis community. And part of it was that like a couple people were friends with a member and they worked together at one of the hospitals, and he like convinced them to come try. And then you had a couple who had found it on the internet. And then you had 1 or 2 people who were really into like Lord of the Rings and wanted to learn how to sword fight, like the more traditional. That's how most people come to it. But what they said is like the fact that we all separately came together makes it so much more inviting. So it was like the problem that a lot of clubs will have. It's like you get 1 or 2 women to come, and then after a while they're like, I'm really tired of being the only woman here. And they stop, and then they leave, and then you get your next like token female.
Right.
And so really maintaining like a group helped.
Yeah, definitely.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't want to say successful, but like,
it's been good. Well, yeah, I don't know.
What made you interested in sword fighting? I think I've asked before, but
yeah, I always wanted to do kendo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah, you've heard this story already, but basically I tried to do kendo in Japan, and I got the very Japanese response of like, for the first year you can watch, for the second year you can practice footwork, and the third year.
That's so bullshit, though.
I know it is ridiculous,
Yeah.
but you can't be offended. I mean, it's like I wanted to do this
I
cultural
would be
practice.
so offended. I'd be like, "Fuck you! I'm gonna do it anyway." Which is kind of what you did.
I mean, ultimately,
right?
this is what
yeah.
I did. Yeah. Yeah, but so that ultimately got me here. But you're totally right, and like, I'll tell you, it didn't take 3 years for me to feel comfortable and safe and be successful at it. So.
How long did it take?
I mean, I competed like 6 months in. I didn't do very well. I was using plastic weapons, which are way more dangerous, by the
Yeah,
way,
I
than
was
steel.
gonna say
It's just
that
like,
seems crazy.
people think because it's plastic, it's safer, but
I feel like it would hurt more.
it does. It hurts
Yeah.
more. It snaps harder. It behaves weird. So
Is
like,
it heavy too?
it's
Or-
heavy, but like, one of the things that makes this what it is that the weight is all here.
Okay.
Which makes it safer. Historically, weight would be a bit more up here, so when you're swinging it, like the
You'd
heavier
actually-
part.
Like
right.
an axle.
Right. Yeah. So you're using momentum. These are sort of designed to dull impact, but plastic is just like the tip is heavy as shit, and it's floppy. So people will like swing at you, and you can like block, and then it will just like sonic boom around your sword because it like just
Yeah.
snaps.
Whoa.
Whew.
Yeah. So did that once. And then, within 2 years, I was pretty actively competing, and like I think I won a medal, or within 3 for sure.
Wow.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Nice. Wow. What other questions do we have about swords?
We have a list. Go through it. Rapid fire.
Rapid fire sword questions. So where was this one made?
This is made in Poland.
When was it made?
I got this. This is like it's like 3 years old.
Poland 2 or 3 years ago.
I have a replacement on the way.
Oh, nice. Why is that?
It's got what it's called a set. If you look at the blade, it like does a little bit of an S up at the top there. Maybe kind of hard to see, like right there. It curves out and then curves back in.
Oh.
When they bend like that, they're much more likely to break.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. So it's not broken yet,
No,
but
it's totally functional. It's just on its last legs.
What does training consist of?
It's a good question. There's a couple types. So like we have regular class, which is a pretty generic, inclusive martial arts class. It's like so we're a nonprofit board of directors club, and basically anyone who's been doing it long enough or feels comfortable is encouraged to run a class. So it's not like Cobra Kai where it's like there's the sensei and you go in, you do whatever sensei says. It's like
Right.
someone will come to the board of directors and be like, hey, I've been thinking about this. I saw this YouTube video that I think I kind of figured out. Like, I want to walk through this with the group. And we're like, fuck, cool. So
That's
Wow.
cool.
it actually ends up, I think, it's created a really successful community because, like, one thing that'll happen is there are some schools that do that, like, totally rote, like, you do what sensei does. And the thing is, they'll fight the same. So, like, once you figure out what one of them is doing that's weird that you can exploit, you're like, oh, okay, well, I've cracked that code. I can just get all of you now.
Right.
And this setup, while maybe not being the most efficient way to train like competitive people, at the very least means that there's not like a style or like a mistake that's being.
It's
made.
more like you have like a toolbox you could pull out.
Yeah, and you could say, that. Last week we studied some Italian stuff, and this week we're studying some German stuff, and I like this from that and that from this. So
Yeah.
Is it all European style?
So
Or-
what we do is the European is unfortunately in the name, which is another fucking topic. Like,
Oh, okay.
there's a fair amount, at least not in the States, it's not as bad, but in Europe, there's a fair amount of nationalism that can get tied up in that.
Oh, okay. Right.
But there are Japanese and Chinese and Korean equivalents of it. The hobby is also actually like weirdly popular in Korea and China. I
Interesting.
haven't really encountered it in Japan, but
Right. Like specifically like the European
like
style.
this stuff.
Do you think you could do kendo now that you're pretty good at this style of sword fighting? Or
I think so, and like I think I would. There's stuff I would benefit from it, but there's also stuff that I would really, really struggle with. Kendo is very it's linear.
Yeah.
Like
I know what you mean.
yeah, and like
It's very like rigid.
yeah, and like physically it's linear and mentally it's linear. If you like watch one of like one of my fights, it's like there's so much circling and like there's wrestling and like
Wow.
I mean, kicking doesn't score, but you can kick people. You know, you can take their weapon and hit them with it. Like there's a lot of stuff I just want to do. Like one thing that I don't think would ever happen in kendo, but like I'll do kind of routinely is if you're in this like Star Wars pose where your swords are kind of crossed and you're like looking for an opening, you can just reach out and grab the tip of their sword.
Whoa.
I mean, imagine grabbing a knife, right? Grabbing a knife doesn't cut you.
Right.
It's the movement of the blade across your hand that cuts you. So like a lot of our old manuscripts say if your opponent is slow to react and leaves their point in your face, take it.
Wow. Do you do that often?
Try not to overuse it, because if you overuse it,
Right.
your training partners will figure it out and snap you in the hands.
I
Ouch.
see.
You have to be pretty quick about it then.
Yeah. And it's kind of like a smirky, like, haha, I got that on you.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Wow. Yeah, I don't have very much experience with swords. I just had a wooden one when I was a little boy.
Those are mean, though.
Yeah, it hurt.
You can't make wood safe.
Yeah, no. My brother and I, we would hit each other on the head and things like that. Yeah. It would be pretty. I mean, well, we're kids. We don't have a lot of strength behind us, but.
That's fair.
Oh, speaking of kids,
Oh,
do you
yeah.
think you would introduce your child to sword fighting?
Yeah. I mean, well, he's like already got plastic swords and foam
Already,
swords and
okay,
stuff. So it's
cool.
like, I mean, yes. Am I going to encourage him to do it? Maybe. It's. I mean, I think that obviously there's safety concerns, but
Yeah.
like, it's safer than football.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not as safe as soccer per se, but like, I think. Like if it's something he's even remotely interested, then yeah, for sure. Plus, it's just like cool to do with your kid. Like like I would imagine, like a dream would be just like hanging out with my kid, like as an older dude,
That
sword
is a
fighting in a
dream.
park. I mean, that would be so cool. Like go camping and then just like,
Totally.
hey, we're
Sounds
bored. You want a sword
wonderful.
fight? Like that would be.
Wow. Yeah, that's the life.
That'd be awesome. Do you have like a mentor of some sort, or
In the like for this?
or like when you started out? or-
Yeah, that's a good question.
Is that like an important thing in the community, like having a mentor? Or is it?
I think so. If you want to stick with it, what you run into is that people get into it for a lot of different reasons. Like some people are really into the historicity of it and like swords, but like they're not doing it because they want to go out and hit people. There's no,
Yeah.
there's no like competitive element to it. Some people are just like jocks who don't want to box and want to and like think this is kind of cool and then, everything in between, right? So I think finding somebody who is willing to like ask you what you're like, why are you here? What's your goal? And if you can find someone that's kind of more closely aligned with that, it definitely helps with longevity. And like that's one of the things that we had to really work to train out of at our club was there's a long story behind it, but its current iteration is a nonprofit that I founded when it was a for-profit business, but the dude who was running it was like, I don't want to do it anymore. So to keep
What's
it going.
the group called?
It's called Indes Ferox Gladio, or IFG.
Okay.
There's like no way to remember that without me writing it out for you.
Yeah.
It's,
What is that
please
from?
write it out. We can put it in the
Indes is a
description.
High German term for in the moment, which is like a fencing concept. And then Ferox Gladio is Latin for fierce blades. And that was the name of our fight team when we were like traveling around. And then when the dude shut the school down, we were like, well, we got a fight team. We have a code of conduct. We have like we have the foundations of everything. And so we just turned it into a nonprofit and kind of took it over. And that's when it turned to this kind of flat hierarchy. But we realized too that it was like, if the people running it are just a bunch of people who actually like are competitive, that's not going to be inclusive.
Right.
Like
Just by the nature of being competitive.
yeah, people are going to show up for first day of class and we're just like full speed wailing on each other. Like that can be a turnoff for some people. So like making sure that we get what we want in our own space, like finding time for those students, but
Totally.
like not presenting that face of it was a hard shift.
Oh,
Are you a mentor currently to anyone?
Yeah, definitely. Especially because I don't train as much. It's easier to sort of do that mentor role, which is like also why I'm hosting the event. I would love defense, but
Right,
it's kind of easier to get a group of people together.
How often do you guys meet up?
I mean, the club has some sort of class, 4 or 5 days a week,
Oh, wow.
depending on what sort of weapon you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
The stuff I do, which is mainly longsword, is there are 2 set classes a week, and then when we're like gearing up for an event, we'll throw another 1 or 2 in.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
That's cool. Could we come check it out?
Definitely.
That'd be fun.
Every Saturday at 2 p.m. is
Okay.
our open class.
Okay.
Nice. Saturday at 2 p.m.
Cool.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, I need some physical exercise. We've been doing yoga. That's been the main physical exercise. Sometimes.
Not really.
Well, now
As of late.
it's just like living in a van. It's like we're always like carrying stuff
Yeah.
or like walking around or, you know.
Fun hiking and whatnot.
Yeah.
You got those
Yeah.
Planet Fitness memberships. I
Yeah.
mean, that's
True, but we
should
haven't
use
used it.
Yeah,
Like we
I
haven't
saw him
exercised
earlier.
yet.
Yeah.
Just taking a shower. There are like you can like tan there and stuff.
It's so weird.
wow.
Yeah, there's like a thing that you can just walk into and it
It's
apparently
like,
just
shakes you.
it just shakes you and like sends some rays inside you and you're
Yeah.
supposed to have better skin or something like that.
It's super weird.
Like you stand on it and it
Yeah.
shakes you?
Yeah.
Like slightly.
Yeah.
Weird.
It's super weird. And it shoots like these non-UV rays at you.
Yeah.
It's like a kind of like a sauna a little bit, but it's not that warm, I think.
It seems like something you'd see on a Japanese variety show.
It looks like it too.
Yeah,
it looks really like
well, it's
creepy.
it's like
kinda.
pink and it has
all pink.
Yeah, it has like some fun name. I don't remember what it is, but like Beauty Nader or some
Beautytron
Beauty or something. Yeah,
3000 or
Beautytron
something.
or something like that.
Yeah. Ridiculous.
Yeah. So I have not tried it yet, but I think I want to try it once.
You
Right?
should definitely try it once
Yeah.
and film it.
Yeah. Was that the GoPro in there? Yeah.
All right. Should we wrap up?
Oh yeah, it's about 3:30.
Oh shit! Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
Should we? Which
This-
camera's the main camera? Where's the GoPro? Oh, it's way over there.
yeah, it's filming a lot of this stuff. The
Nice.
trees.
Okay.
Well, yeah, this was.
Stab that like button.
Oh yeah.
Stab
You're
that
like-
subscribe button.
Yeah, hit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
stab it.
Stab yourself in the head with a sword.
Yeah.
Stab the throat of the subscriber.
Yeah. Accidentally injured
And
that
then feel
subscribe
really
button.
bad.
And apologize. Be
And
Canadian about it.
Yeah, be nice
Yes.
about it, and yeah. All right. Well,
Right. We'll
thank you
put
very
the-
much, Joe,
It's a
for
pleasure.
being
we'll
on
put the
it. It's
description in the thing about
yeah,
the organization.
the organization.
Yeah,
on
cool.
that.
Yeah, I'll give you the info.
But yeah,
Cool.
it's like it's always so nice talking with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel the same.
I
We're
just
big
I feel
fans of you.
I feel enriched just by speaking with you. So
Mhm.
it's nice.
As no one's ever said that before.
Oh really?
It's patently ridiculous.
Until now. All right, guys.
All right.
Catch you later.
Bye.
Bye. Okay. So that was it.
That was blast. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That was awesome.